What's up, cousin, and welcome to CoCo Conjure. Here we talk about all things hoodoo, folklore, and spiritual journeys. My goal is to give foundation for the novice and inspiration to the advanced practitioner. If you have not guessed already, my name is CoCo. Cousin, what's going on, cousin? How y'all feeling tonight? I am recording this on a Friday night. I got a warm drink in my hand. I got a blanket over my lap. I just got finished playing in makeup because I've been doing makeup tutorials. Man, it's a good night. So I hope you guys are feeling great. Morning, evening, night, whatever it is for you. I hope you're feeling so good right now, cousin. This episode is, I'm sure as you're aware because you saw the thumbnail and the title and the description, but this episode is all about the seldom utilized, sometimes outright odd tactics that pop up in the hoodoo space. Because cousin, one thing I have learned on my quest to be a successful worker for myself and for my loved ones, for those close to me, it's that when it comes to hoodoo, there's so much that has been done, that has been done and forgotten, and the new generation will never know about it. You know what I mean? Nowadays, it's all about being as close to Afrocentric as you can be. And we're starting to shed that Christian veneer a little bit. And the social media stuff, child, you're going to see folks with Instagram worthy bath setups and candles all over and daisies and roses floating in pink glittering water for, I don't know, some love come to me spell. Or you'll see, baby, if they're real down home, old school, you'll see a roasting pan filled with blue and green candles surrounded by a heavy hand of seasonings, maybe a string and some pins sticking out here and there for the aesthetic. But cousin, because of social media, a lot of hoodoo has become aesthetic. And if you're new to the space, like I said, there's so much that has been done in hoodoo. So many tactics, so many strategies, so many different types of workings that have been done in hoodoo that they have been, done and lost as the old folks died. There's a lot more to this than the aesthetics of it all. A lot more to it than what you'll see online or what you'll read like in new books about hoodoo. And a lot of times it's more about like consuming, it's our hoodoo is easily consumable nowadays. But back then when you couldn't just go to the store and pick up a thing or two to get your thing or two done, it wasn't so consumable. And so the tactics, the styles, the oddity of it all was something that we would never utilize today. And those are the tactics I want to talk about. Let's start with candle work. How about that? And I'm going to start with candle work because it's the most often seen online. When you think hoodoo, you think those pre-oiled candles with the alleged, lucky money draw, love come to me, doom, like those kind of candles you would find in a botanica with the prayers and all that. Or you think, like I said, that one lady with a white head wrap on who's burning blue and green candles for business success, and it's in a turkey tin. Like the roasting pans you put your turkeys in, like that's what it looks like, but and it's very stagnant. It's very in one place, dressed, prayed over, burning brightly, but for the gram, for the photo, because the candle says just burn this and say the prayer, it's very stagnant. And I know I've often said that a simple work for any beginner to do is to pick a candle, a white candle or any color that works best for you, pick a psalm, and then light that candle and pray over it often, right? But what I and mainstream hoodoo practitioners don't often talk about is candle movement. And it's literally what it sounds like. You're moving the candles around on the altar space or table to sympathetically represent what your goal is and what you want done. So let's take a simple work, for example, like a cord cutting. I'm going to start by saying cord cuttings, and I've never read anywhere where cord cutting is native to Hoodoo. However, I am aware that is something that we practice in the space. Cord cuttings are often talked about. It's one of the most popular works to do, right? So most folks in our Hoodoo space, we would find a figure candle, a he-she figure candle, or however that relationship is set up. We would wrap twine around it so they're connected by a cord, that cord sympathetically representing the ties, the bonds between us and the other person, or between our client and their ex-partner. And, then we would burn the candles and let the cord burn, right? And it's beautiful to look at when filmed, very dramatic. And like I said, it's a lot less Hoodoo and a lot more internet witchy. Although, like I said, I'm aware that that this is very much practiced in our space for the modern Hoodoo practitioner. But it's just as viable to take those figure candles, okay, carve the person's name in them, the he, the she, or the she's, the whatever, right? Load the item with personal concerns. And then over the course of 9 days at a certain time of day, slowly move the candles apart on your altar space. Not as pretty or dramatic, but just as effective. And then you would take the remaining wax and dispose of it on opposite sides of town. So one figure candle wax, we'll say the he, right, is in the east. And then the other figure candle wax, say it's the she, is on the west side of town. So you've separated them, right? So yes, you can still do that work stagnant in one place, right? But the movement adds an element to it that guides the spirits that you're working with, guides the magic that you're conducting, the conjure that you're brewing. The movement helps with that. Okay, so that's an example of when I say candle movement, right? So you understand what I'm talking about. Taking a new technique or tactic that's very popular and then moving those candles around. Now let's go old school. Okay, let's go to the way back whens. So another way that you can utilize movement with your candles is with a step altar. Step, S-T-E-P, step altar. This isn't talked about a lot, and definitely only odd in that it's not often used, right? But it's very effective. I first learned about step altars in this book called Mountain Conjure and Southern Rootwork by a gentleman named Orion Foxwood. He's a lot of things when it comes to magic. He has a couple different wizard hats, but he grew up in Appalachia and he grew up with Appalachian magic. And he says often in his book that magic takes from Hoodoo often. So I'm going to say this counts. He writes, the step altar way of working can be seen as a waterfall of power that flows down from the heart of God into the heart of humanity, earth, and or manifestation. It can also be seen as a detangling or disintegration of a form or pattern. In spirit work, the worker's focus may be making, that's drawing, attracting, creating, or growing, or it may be unmaking, which is repelling, sending away, destruction, regenerating, or dissolving. And the step altar allows the worker to work with these modes or currents of spirit. So essentially, you use this altar setup to move your petitions, candles, and whatever from the earthly existence, that's where you and I are, and then up to the highest force you recognize. If that's God, that's God. If that's spirit, capital S, that's spirit, capital S. For me, it would be a universal force like life or death, right? Oftentimes, step altars will be tiered like steps, hence the name step altar. So you can move the object up and down from one realm to the other, sympathetically from one realm to the other. Or you can lay your altar out flat, but in 3 rows, with each row representing a tier or a step, and you move your candle, petition, whatever, from one row to the next. So say you need to draw money, right? You need to pull money to you. You might go from, the universe where the power sits, and then move that money candle from the top tier, the divine tier, all the way down to, the earthly tier where you are. You see what I'm saying? You have a petition, you're trying to get rid of something. You would start that petition on the earthly tier, or whatever represents that earthly tier on your step altar. And then you would move it to the ancestral part of that tier, which is the next level, and then move it up to the divine. See how it's moving in steps over time. Again, not often talked about, not often seen, but very, I want to say it can be very helpful. It's a helpful way of working, and using that sympathetic link, you're essentially turn your altar into a mini cosmos, right? And you're moving things through the cosmos to get to you or away from you. I didn't write this down in my notes, but it just sprung to my mind. Another use of candle movement is an initiation when it comes to hoodoo as well. Zora Neale Hurston, in her book Mules and Men, she talks about her initiation under 1-2 head, where basically they have to pass this black candle, the flame of this black candle, around, and it weaves in and out of the people in her altar circle. And by the end of it, she's given the power to light candles. I know that sounds silly. Like, what do you mean the power to light candles? I'm saying that, especially for those of us who've been around a while, you understand what I mean. But if you're new, when you light your candle, it's not just lighting the candle. You're conjuring, right? You're pulling in the spirits. You're calling spirits to you. You're lighting the way for those spirits. You're using the flame itself, like the spirit of the flame itself, in the work. So like, it's not just flick the bick, light the wick. It's there's more to it than that. And so in this initiation ritual, with this movement of candles, they've conjured power in the space. They've initiated Zora. Or I say that like she's a person. I know they initiate Hurston into their altar circle, and in doing so, she becomes like, she has the power of candle lighting. So when it comes to time to do that in the altar circle, she's the one that does it. She's the one who gets it done. Okay, so candle work. That's I literally named 2 things you can do right now. And I don't know if you want to do an initiation ritual. You can't initiate yourself in hoodoo. You're initiated under someone, so you gotta have to do what they want. But the cord cutting, the step altar, those are things you can do right now. They're odd in that we don't see movement, but they're not like out of the ordinary or never talked about. But you want to know what is out of the ordinary? You want to know what is never, ever, ever talked about, or like done, like no one's doing it? And it's knot work. KNOT, knot work. And when I know why, when we say knot work or working with knots, people tend to think it's more European inspired. That's the Germanics, that's the heathens, that's the Irish. That's not us. That's not a us thing. And thus, in order to keep their practice very African inspired, they stay away from knots. They don't even add it to their arsenal of things to do. And that's what makes it such an odd hoodoo tactic. And I'm telling you right now, like, Europeans aren't the only ones who figured out knots can hold magic. They ain't the only ones. Okay. So, in her book, Mojo Workin', Katrina Hazard Donald writes, other types of protective fabrications, such as the type requiring the tying of knots directly on the body, would later retreat into isolated pockets and nearly disappear. The tying of knots and making of protective packets were widespread religious practices in traditional West and Central West African religions and would become staples in African American black belt hoodoo practices that would continue into the 21st century. So we're talking about a practice that either because you're initiated under someone who's initiated under someone in there's lineage, or you don't know because your old folks died and they didn't tell you about knots. Right? So our ancestors would wear knotted amulets to ward off sickness or to heal from sickness. The patterns and the knots would be specific to their regional cultural cosmology, but they were knots nonetheless. Okay. And when I say ancestors, I'm talking before the slave ships. Once on American soil, we didn't necessarily use it that way any longer, but we did utilize knots in our work. First, simply when tying off a mojo or other such power objects that required a knot. Later in Mojo Workin', Hazard Donald recounts a tale of a man who filled his mouth with tobacco and whiskey as he finished his mojo creation. And when he tied off the string that held his mojo together, he spit the tobacco and the whiskey and his own gobs of spit onto the knot before saying something like, "There, now, that's a mighty good knot. There ain't no devil can get through that." Right? So the knot wasn't just to keep the things inside. The knot was oddly blessed to make sure things, the things that should be outside stayed outside the mojo hand. Try that the next time you create a mojo. You go to a worker and they're like, "Okay, I'm going to make you a mojo to do, whatever thing you need." Ask them, "But did you spit Tabasco and tobacco and whiskey on that knot before tying it off, or how you tie this up?" Zora Neale Hurston captured more in-depth knot work in her piece for the Journal of American Folklore titled Hoodoo in America. Y'all, I'm pulling out all the old classics on this one. We talking Hazard Donald, we talking Hoodoo in America. I pulled out all the classics. Anyway, so in Hoodoo in America, Hurston details work she picked up by Samuel Thompson, a man she describes as a Catholic hoodoo doctor of New Orleans, and a man who claimed he was the grandnephew of Marie Laveau. Now, whether he was the grandnephew of Marie Laveau by blood or by hoodoo lineage, I can't tell you, cousin. Anywho, Samuel taught Hurston this knot tying method to keep a man true. So if you want to keep your man true, you measure his penis with a piece of string, then tie 9 knots in the string. Curse outside women while you are tying each knot and say, "Albert Jones, fall into the bed." Tie this knotted string to another string and wear it about the waist, and he can never have intercourse with another woman. Now, I'm going to assume that you swap out Albert Jones with the name of the man you want to keep tucked tight in your bed, but you get the idea. Essentially, you tying up this man's member to function only for you. You putting kinks and knots in his package so it only functions for you. And in the meantime, you're literally cursing out any of them other women who are sniffing around, being a temptation and trying to break up your relationship. Okay, so I hear what you're saying, cousin. Okay, Coco, that's not that odd. I mean, yeah, we don't use knots now, and that's what makes it odd. But I can go get some string right now and do some knot work, whatever. Then let's get weird. Let's get odd like weird, okay? There's nothing odder in hoodoo, nothing weirder in hoodoo than the work required to put something in someone else's body. And it's a tactic that is laced all throughout old conjure stories and folklore, and rather deadly. It's a rather deadly thing to do, because either you make them physically sick or you make them mentally sick by affecting their body, by putting things in their body, or by sympathetically altering their body. Right? So going back to Hurston's Hoodoo in America for a second, just so I can make sure I give you an example of what I'm talking about. Hurston writes of another man who also claimed to be Marie Laveau's grandnephew. Again, whether that's by blood or by lineage, no one can tell you. But he was a Catholic hoodoo by the name of Albert Fricard. And after Hurston initiated with him, she learned this method on, and I cannot believe I'm about to say this, she learned this method of how to swell a person. Swell? SWELL. Swell a person with a brick. Goes something like this. You're going to take 9 black candles. You're going to put the name on them. You're going to steal a new brick. You got to steal the brick. And you're going to get 2 yards of flannel. Don't steal it. Just buy it. Take the name of the person and put it on a large piece of paper. Write it down 9 times. And put that face down on the brick and tie it tight with strong twine. You're going to burn 9 candles each day for 9 days. Then you're going to dig a well for a brick down to the water table. And on the ninth day, you're going to slip that brick down into the bottom. And just as that brick soaks up the water, so too will your victim swell with fluid. And you was just going to light a black candle and say some nasty things. Did it ever occur to you that you can put fluid in somebody's body with a brick? I can't believe I'm about to do this, but I'm going to adapt this for modern life. So black candles, got that. Name paper, we can do that. Flannel, we can do that. I'm not sure what the flannel is for, because he doesn't tell you about what the flannel is for. I'm guessing you wrap the brick up in the flannel. I don't know. And okay, so when he says dig a well to the water table, the thing is that he's in New Orleans, and so they have a funny relationship with the water line down there, right? Like they're below sea level, but you probably aren't, cousin. You're not below sea level. But let's just get creative, okay? Across the street from me is a marsh. It's not even across the street. It's across a parking lot. There's a marsh right behind my apartment complex. Maybe there's a creek near you. Maybe you can just get some dirty, gross water in a bucket. Put the brick in that. Okay. But the tactic remains the same, I guess. You burn those 9 candles, 1 candle a day over 9 days. And then make sure you have your name paper. Make sure you tie that twine. Maybe you want to bless that knot when you tie the twine, right? And then you put the brick in the water so the person's body will swell. Okay. As a curse goes, as a hex goes, as a jinx goes, that's wild stuff. That is so, you can really mess somebody up. As someone who has been so full of fluid, it felt like my skin would pop. I'm going to tell you that swelling is pure agony. And you know what's worse? You want to know what's worse than making somebody swell? Again, I cannot believe I'm about to say this. What's worse and even more odd than putting fluid on someone's body is making their rectum sore. And it's at this point, because somebody gonna come across this episode and try this stuff and be like, it didn't work for me, I'm suing CoCo. Listen, it's at this point, cousin, I'm telling you that this is for entertainment purposes only. And what you do as a curse, jinx, hoodoo, whammy is your business. I am not telling you to go out and make people's body swell with fluid. I am not telling you to make someone's rectum. I am not telling you to make someone's rectum sore. But, however, this is what was written down by the old folks. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Twice in Hoodoo in America, under the guidance of two completely different hoodoo doctors, Hurston was instructed, and stay with me here, Zora Neale Hurston was instructed to get the dung of her enemies and roast it over an open flame. And by the time the dung was good and hot, the person's rectum would be so sore that if they did not find their own root doctor, the anus would simply rot away. That is absolutely diabolical. Like, absolutely diabolical. I throw the swamp foot curse. If you follow me over the summer, I'm quick to tell somebody, may your socks always be wet. May you always have fungus between your toes. Like, I'm just saying it, you know. But to go to the lengths to literally get the feces out, at this point it would be out of an outhouse, but you literally going to go get someone else's poop so you can roast it over a fire. Do you know how much hate you have to have for this person? Do you know how much money, as a community worker, do you know how much money you would have to get for that kind of work? Cause ain't no way, cousin. Ain't no way. So, if you didn't think it could get any weirder than that, you're wrong. You're wrong. It gets weirder. There's also tales in Hurston's Hoodoo in America, and especially in Harry Hyatt's Hoodoo Conjuration, Witchcraft, and Root Work, that would cause a person to lose their mind. The easiest one that comes to mind is from Hurston's mentor in Florida, named Joshua. Joshua. They said that to drive someone crazy, you take their picture and put it in a running stream of water. Their minds will go crazy like the photo flowing in the rapids. Yo, again, as far as like whammying somebody, as far as hoodooing somebody, baby, whew, that's a rough way. And there are similar stories to this as well. The photo, but instead of water, they use like a rabbit. You catch a rabbit, cut its forehead open, put the photo in the rabbit's head, right? And then let it go, and it'll hop around and die. And while it's hopping around and dying, you'll drive the person crazy. They talk about it with snakes. They talk about using someone's foot tracks. They talk about putting snakes in someone's hat to drive them crazy. My favorite, though, is this method to cause eternal headaches. You get 2 strands of hair from the person's head. You dampen it with Hoyt's cologne. You dig down to the root of a tree. Then you bore a hole in that root and you put the hair in the root, in the hole, to stop up the hole. The person will go mad with a headache that they will never be able to shake. That, again, just like that swamp foot curse, is just rude. That's just a rude. It's just diabolical. It's a diabolical thing to do. Okay, you name it, you can drive someone out of their mind and keep them confused and compliant to you. There's tons of way to do it, but we don't do that anymore. When we talk hexes and curses and jinxes and whammies and hoodooing people, we talk powders, we talk oils, we talk black candles, we talk, crossroads, but we don't talk about catching rabbits, slitting their foreheads open and stuff a picture inside. We don't talk about putting their hair in a tree. Oh my God. Oh, it gets worse, guys. Hold on. Because I did say that it's not just you put something in the person's body. So not just fluid, not just a sore rectum, but like critters, little creepy crawlies, talking about rabbits and snakes. In the previous episode to this one, I told you a story of a person who says that they pulled a rattlesnake out of someone who was fixed down bad. There is a similar story of a person who had a lizard in their toe. You heard exactly what I said. Someone put a lizard in this person's toe with hoodoo. The story goes like this. It was years before I could stand to have anybody tell it to me. Years ago, 1896, there was a woman that had something that began to move in the side of her leg, and she went on for days and weeks and finally into months. And it seems that the moving became larger. First, the doctor said that it was her blood, and they kept waiting. And then the woman said, "Why does my blood move in this particular place and does not move anywhere else?" So she bathed it, rubbed it, and they did everything they knew. Finally, it got so large that you could see the shape of it just above her ankle. They began to bind certain chemicals to her leg, which seemed to weaken the movement of whatever it was. So they poulticed it with things that blistered the skin and bound it very tight above. And all of a sudden, one morning when she woke up, there was a little snake on her bed that had come out of her leg where the blister was made. Then the doctor came to investigate, but he was a MD doctor and they never liked to admit to the conjuration. While the older people that had been working on it told him that it was something that had been put in her leg by a witch. They say that was really true. I could have seen that person. Another occasion, pretty much like that, where the lizard came out at the end of the woman's toe. Either of these things I could have seen in South Carolina if I had just gone to the next little town. Okay. That's just me being fascinated with the fact that there's like a gazillion stories of people having snakes, lizards, geckos, mice coming out of their body because some hoodoo witch, two-head doctor got paid to put it there. It's odd, but it's not actually a tactic you can utilize. And you want to know how I know that? Because, unless all the old folks died who was doing it. But they never tell you how to put the snake or the lizard inside the person's body. Like, they can tell us how to make a rectum sore. And they can tell us how to swell somebody up with fluid. But they can't tell you how to put a lizard in somebody's toe. I'm not buying it. It is fun, though. Okay, so I've taken you from the practical to the outright ridiculous. My final odd hoodoo tactic, or I should say practice, is a lot lighter than putting a lizard in someone's toe. And it's less of a tactic and more of a lost art. And that's tree whispering. I first came across this idea in Stephanie Rose Bird's book, Sticks, Stones, Roots, and Bones. Again, we're going back to all the old Hoodoo library classics. Pretty early on in the book, she talks about the masters of Girodon. I think I said that right. Girodon, Jiridon. Rose Bird writes, Girodon is the science of the trees. To learn Girodon, the seeker, whether hunter, warrior, or shaman, must spend ample time alone in the wilderness observing the workings of nature, including the expressions of animals and the whispers of trees. And then to further cement her point, which I love when people use sources, she goes on to talk about this white lady called Ruth Bass, who was very much a product of the 1930s, very much a product. And Ruth Bass had an interview with this black man named Destiny, who Rose Bird suggests was a master of Girodon, or a tree whisperer. And it took me a while to cross-check this source because as someone in 2025, I relied on the internet to lead me separately to Ruth Bass's interview. But wouldn't you know it, I was able to cross-reference this tree whisper story with a book already in our Hoodoo library. Again, we pulling all the classics out. And this book is called For My People, 400 Years of African American Folklore, a collection of all things Black amassed by folklorist Daryl Cumber Dance. And right there in this huge tome, I found the exact article that Rosebird was referencing. And it was an article written for Scribner's Magazine. Now, one day I will definitely read to you the interaction because it's a very interesting one. It's very telling of, like I said, Ruth Bass being a product of the 1930s, as well as this man, Destiny, and how he saw his work, how he saw his power, and how he was willing to express that to this woman. But too long didn't read. I said Destiny. That's not his name. His name is Divinity. Divinity, the man and Bass's interaction, understood that there was spirit in everything. He was an animist, right? He learned that from his grandmother, who he described as a witch, and he was able to hear the wisdom in the trees because he was born a conjure person. He says that he was marked with a caul over his head at birth. And he listened to the way the wind moved through the trees. He said he could gather wisdom from them. He learned the signs, the way the animals moved, and the way the air felt across his skin. He spent his life in this one place, learning the natural movement of the Mississippi swampland in his backyard. And all of this combined allowed him to hear the spirit in the trees, to see the wind and perceive life on a spiritual level, much differently than you or I might describe. And that's not something we're taught anymore. All the old folks who had that kind of wisdom, they're gone. And, they take their secrets with them, or, the trees in the swamps are parking lots now, so we'll never get a chance to really experience exactly what it was Divinity experienced. But that's how time works, cousin. Tree whispering, swelling of the body, making an anus sore, moving candles, tying knots. These are all odd hoodoo tactics because our practice has changed. Our practice has fundamentally changed. I know people would like to say that it has not, but from plantation to now, it doesn't look the same. Hoodoo is the practice of making a way where there is no way. The practice adapted with us as we, Black Americans, struggled and survived in this country, in the United States. And cousin, with freedom, with money, comes capitalism. So a lot of what we used to do, you can now find in a candle or oil at the low price of $11.11, and that will get the job done. You don't have to go listen to the tree. You don't have to know exactly what to say and how many knots. You don't have to move the candles around because you purchased the alleged candle that will get you your money, right? But it's always fun to get a glimpse of what was, whether that be, actual things we can try to replicate today or even just odd, weird stuff that you and I both know probably didn't actually happen. So, cousin, I encourage you to try some of these tactics. See if you can hear the trees in the wind, knot up that string so the devil can't get in, and move those candles between us and the divine. I am going to say one last time, don't cause a sore rectum though. That's not cool. And if you try that, don't tell them CoCo told you to try it, because I didn't. Leave your enemies' buttholes alone, okay? All right. You have reached the part of the podcast where I scour the internets and try to answer a question or two. This particular one came to me, actually. I actually had some lined up, but I think that this person's question came right on time. This is from Instagram. I'm going to tell you, if you can Instagram me, I'm CoCo Conjure on Instagram, and I will see it eventually, but I don't check. I'm so old, y'all, I'm so old. So it's going to take me a minute to check there because I don't think to check my messages on Instagram. Like, I know people give out their Instagrams like when they're dating and things like that, but I don't. I still just, you can email me or text me. I have a Google number you can text me at, but like, I don't. So if you want to reach me, if you want to ask me a question and you want to reach me, the best place to do that is to either leave a comment on YouTube or to send an email to cococonjure@gmail.com. That's the name of this podcast, cococonjure@gmail.com. If you do it some other place, I will see it eventually, and I will do my best to answer you and maybe even read it out loud, but I'm not making any promises. Okay, so that's enough preamble. Today's question comes from a friend on Instagram. Their name is Justice. That's all I'm going to say. And well, it's either Justice or Cherry Bomb. Again, I don't know Instagram enough to know these things, but they asked a very good question. They say, "Hey girl, I listened to your podcast and learned so much. So thank you." Oh, thanks for listening, friend. Thanks, cousin. I'm happy you came by. They said, let's see. "I was wondering if you can point me in the direction of how to even start looking for my own practitioner or mentor, or even a group of people to start having community around my beliefs." Okay, so that's a fantastic question. Because I think a lot of us want to get into the hoodoo space, want to have lineage, and can't find it. Can't find a mentor, can't find a teacher, can't find an altar circle, can't find any of those things. So here's my answer to that. I would start at Black-owned botanicas. They're few and far between. But if you have one in your area, I would start there. If you can't find a Black-owned botanica, find a botanica that caters to folk magic practitioners like you or me. You know that they cater to that because they're going to have Hadron root. They're going to have devil's shoestring. They're going to have Ephi candles. They're going to have, a lot of things that only ATRs would seek out, right? The alleged candles, the he and she candles, you ask for lodestones and you say the he and she, the store owner knows exactly what you're talking about. You want to find someone like that, because if they're not able to assist you, they probably know someone who might be able to connect you with somebody. But you got to play nice. You got to make friends. Okay. The next thing you want to do is look for local group meetups. I know that sounds redundant because they just asked me, how do I go about finding community in my area? You have to literally just Google it. So, for me, for instance, I think I said this in like the very first Spiritual Chats episode. I was looking for community and I wanted to be around people who understood, who had the wisdom, and I wasn't expecting them to teach me, but I wanted to absorb, what they said. And the first thing that popped up when I just typed in Maryland Hoodoo meetups was the Chesapeake Conjure Society. It was literally the first thing that came up. I still have yet to get to one of their things because every time they do it, it's on the Eastern Shore. Who's texting me? Oh my goodness, that was my sister. Big sis is texting me. Anyway, but anytime I want to go to the meet up with the Conjure Society, it's on like a Friday in the evening on the Eastern Shore, and I don't live anywhere near there, so I have to plan for that. And it always pops up like 1 week or 2 weeks before they have their thing, so I can never get to it. But I'm trying my best to get over there because I think that it's not just hoodoo. They're talking about hoodoo in Maryland. I know that I talk a lot about Low Country, South Carolina, because that's where my peoples came from. But I was born and raised in Baltimore. And like I said, this is the Up South. I think I even got that from the Conjure Society. This is the Up South. And the Conjure came all the way up here. We have your Harriet Tubmans. We had your Frederick Douglasses and, and Sandy the Conjure Mans. Like they were from right here in my backyard. And I would love to get more in touch with, the old folks or the ones who know in my own area. So yeah, if you can't find meetups, then you want to go to where magical people are, and you want to go to conferences that have a space for hoodoo practitioners, basically. Um, the one I went to last year and I thoroughly enjoyed, and I'm going again, is called Sacred Space. That's led by that same, like, the people who lead the temple I go to for my solstices and things, like when I get my pagan on. And I, because of that, I know that that conference is going to have a mix of people there. So if you're into Cometicism, if you're into Hellenism, if you're into, just straight up good old fashioned wizard hat robe, like whatever you want, you're going to find it there. And they did not disappoint. They had many classes with a root lady. Oh my God, her name escapes me. How horrible is that? It's too late in the night, but I've referenced her before in a couple episodes, and I enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see her again. Another conference that's going to cater to hoodoo, or have some of those folklore or folk magic influences, would be Mystic South. That's another one. And I heard about Hex Fest in New Orleans, although I'm sure that there's other, there are other magical conferences and meetups happening in New Orleans. It's New Orleans. I would assume that there's a lot going on, but the one you can find the most information on so far that I've seen is Hex Fest, and it caters to hoodoo, voodoo, whatever. I'm not sure how good it is. If you've gone to Hex Fest, please let me know, because I'm definitely going to Mystic South. I'm getting there, but I'm not sure about Hex Fest. And then I'm trying to think. There were also hoodoo practitioners at the Salem Witchcraft and Folklore Festival. That's new. And they don't necessarily look like you and me, but they have the lineage. Like they studied under someone who studied under people who did look like you and me. You know what I mean? Like, so if that doesn't bother you at all, then that's another place where you can find hoodoo practitioners out in the open for you to talk to. But again, I'm lucky in that I have like 2 of those in my backyard. It gets harder depending on where you live. So if meeting people out in the wild is hard and getting to those conferences is difficult, so you can't network, you can't meet the people in the space and get an idea of who you might want as a mentor, and you don't have the Black Botanica and the community built into like where you are, your next best option would be to find an online practitioner. You gotta find somebody online who's offering classes, honestly, because otherwise it comes down to mentorships are not just you finding a mentor. It's a teacher being open to taking students. You understand what I mean? It's more than just saying, oh, I want to practice hoodoo. And I think this cousin who asked the question, I think they know that. I'm not trying to say otherwise, but like you have to mesh with this person, and they have to choose you as much as you choose them. They have to see the power in you. They have to see the willingness to learn in you, so on and so forth. So in person is hard, especially since all the old folks are dying and passing away, and they're not sharing the information anymore. And again, it's become so commercialized now. So you can literally pay for a mentor if you want to. You can find yourself an online hoodoo person who aligns best with how you would like to work. I would take a one-off class at first to see if their style of working works with how you would like to work. And then you can just pay thousands of dollars if you want to work with a online practitioner. That gets tricky. It gets tricky, but it's no more or less of a gamble than finding someone in real life. Um, in the back of Sticks, Stones, Roots, and Bones, Stephanie Rose Bird actually has a couple places that she mentions in her index. I like her. Her hoodoo is very modern. And a lot of people don't like her because she references her Wiccan roots and such. But like, it's very obvious to me that she takes her hoodoo very seriously. Like, it's not a way to write a book, make money situation. Like, she put the work in, is what I'm saying. Anyway, so Stephanie Rose Bird, you can write her yourself. There's the EFA Foundation. There's the School of Ancient Mysteries and Sacred Art Center. That's written by Louisa Tesh. I don't think I said that person's name right, but she wrote the book Jambalaya, and that's an old school, you just getting into hoodoo, like one of the first books most people come across when they get into hoodoo and they're trying to figure it out on their own. She wrote, like, she's been around the block a few times, if you get what I'm saying. Like, she knows her stuff. Okay. And then there's Sage Mountain. They take herb classes and things like that. And then there is the Malidoma Practice Some, Some. Oh, no. That's a person's name. Malidoma Patrice Some. And that's Into the Heart of African Shamanism. If you want to take a look into that, it's Echoes of Ancestors, and apparently their email address is echoes@onemain.com. Anyway, all of those things are like places to start. I'm not saying that they're the best. I think the best is when you sit up under somebody in their kitchen and watch them work. I said over and over again that I had to free learn because I couldn't find someone who I couldn't find the people who would want to teach me. And also I'm aware that I live on the fringe. So like, even if they were to teach me things, I don't follow that model. Like, I'm not going to follow Ifa. I don't believe in the Abrahamic God. Like, there's things that makes me a particular and very peculiar student. So I'm not the best candidate for a mentor. You know what I'm saying? But I learned what I learned because I did these things. I went to the conferences. I sought out the people who knew. I dug into, what was written, and I looked at who wrote it, right? And where they're coming from and what their lineage is. And I looked at what their experience is. And for the beginning parts of this, I literally just sat and asked my grandmother questions just so I could figure out like how this goes, how this best works, in her life, and how I can adapt that to my beliefs and practices. I say over and over again that I will never claim to be, a master hoodoo doctor, greatest root worker of all time. I will never claim that. And I will never offer a class or teach a workshop. Well, maybe on folklore, but I would never teach how I work. And that's because I strongly believe that to be in a space like that, you should probably have lineage or a lot of experience. And I don't have that. I don't have traditional lineage. I had no mentor. And I do not have like 20, 30 years of experience, right? What I have is a curiosity to learn, and the money to navigate spaces, to go to conferences, to buy the textbooks, to buy the books, to buy the folklore, to the time to sit down and read it. I have no kids. I have no husband. So I can sit down and read all day if I want to. You know what I mean? So I say all of that to say, if you cannot find a mentor in any of the ways I just mentioned, or you cannot find what you're looking for online, it's okay to pave your own path. And perhaps while walking that path, you will find people who are willing to share and teach you a few things. All right. You've reached the end of the podcast episode. Thank you so much for staying as long as you have. Please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you are listening. Also, drop me a line. Please email me, but if you do it someplace else, I will find it eventually and I will answer you. But before we get out of here, cousin, I want to let you know, I want to remind you that you deserve the world. You deserve the world, cousin. Your body is a temple. Health and wellness will forever be in your grasp. Not a single lizard will crawl out of your toe. Your rectum will never be sore, and your body will not swell. Make sure you drink your water so your body does not swell. Okay? And when you find yourself in a tough spot, don't be afraid to pull out those old hexes, curses, and whammies. Or set up that step altar. Move those candles. Move that petition up to the divine. Because, cousin, when you call for your blessings, they will come to you. I'll see you guys next time.